Hey everyone, it's Emily with Hearty Soul. Welcome back to the channel. Last week we discussed all of the essentials that we need in order to get ready to start your new hobby, sewing. And this week we're going to cover how to thread a sewing machine. So I know a lot of you are really excited about some of the projects that you want to get into. Maybe you've already created a list, maybe you've already thumbnailed a few things that you want to work on or accomplish by starting to learn how to sew. And some of you are like, I don't even know how to thread my machine. That's what this week's lesson is all about. We're gonna learn how to thread your machine. So we're gonna start with a very, very basic how to thread the machine so that we can get your machine up and running and working on all of those amazing projects that you've got up in your imagination. So I put a little call out to some of my family and friends asking how many people would want to learn how to sew, and a lot of people raised their hands saying, I got a sewing machine from my grandma, or I have a sewing machine in my closet. I have no idea how to use it. It's very intimidating, they'll tell me, and I'll say, come over to me and I'll show you how to sew. And I feel like maybe this is the best format to be able to do that, to be able to share with everybody I know who wants to learn how to sew. Last week I covered all of the essentials we need in order to start sewing, and this week we're going to talk about how to thread the sewing machine. That is the most basic thing you can do. So once you've got your sewing machine, the next thing you need is some thread, and we can start threading up your machine. So let's get started. So once we get the basics of learning how to thread the sewing machine, the opportunities are endless as far as how many projects you want to accomplish on your sewing machine. You're going to have so many different reasons to bring your sewing machine out and work on things. And once you get this simple step down, you'll be off and running. Now, I've worked on a few other sewing machines in my past, and what I can tell you is that, of course, your sewing machine is going to be a little bit different than mine, but in my experience, a lot of the machines are very similar. And as long as you've got an idea of how to thread one machine, you could probably give me any American-made sewing machine and I could figure out how to thread it. It is that kind of basic idea, and they all have sort of the same start and stopping points to threading. A lot of the machines will have step guides written or kind of embossed on the machine itself, and that's super helpful. So I'll show you what my machine looks like here. Let's get a little closer. You can't see me over there. Okay, so this is my machine. This is a Viking Husqvarna. So here's my machine from the side. Now right over here we've got the on and off button. I also have two plug-ins here. One is to plug into my electricity into the wall outlet, and then the other one is for my foot pedal. Each one of these plugs is kind of a little bit different, so you should be able to figure out which one goes in where relatively easy. And my foot pedal is right down here, right below my sewing machine. Then we've got the on and off switch that powers the light, and then this is the hand wheel. So you can kind of see over here that my needle goes up and down when I move that hand wheel, okay? So you'll want that if you want to stitch slower for some reason, or when we're threading the machine. So I just want you to know this is the hand wheel on this side of the machine. All right, so here's my sewing machine. And my machine has a little box that you can open up here, and inside is where the thread is housed. And so I've chosen a dark thread today so that I can show you a little bit easier on my light machine. So I'm going to take my thread off like it didn't exist here. All right, so here's my little thread spool holder. I'm just going to, yours might be inside your machine or it might be on top of your machine up here somewhere. So I'm going to put my spool on, and I've got my tail here. So I've got this little spool guard that goes right on top of this. This keeps my spool of thread nicely inside there. Make sure that it doesn't slip off when I'm sewing, so it stays right on there nice. Then I've got my thread tail here. So I have some arrows on my machine here. You can kind of see them embossed into the machine, and they go up and around, down, and then up again, and then down again. So I'm just going to be following those arrows. Your machine might have like a step-by-step guide. Mine happens to have arrows. So firstly, I'm just going to slide this up underneath this hook. And then it says to go here to this hook. I'm going to slide that through. It kind of catches between two pieces of metal there. And then it comes down. So I'm going to bring it down and then through here. Now, there's something kind of missing visually here. I'm going to come over here to my hand wheel here and wheel it towards me. And now we notice that there's a hook that came up here. So now it's easier to get to with my thread. So I'm going to thread it around here, bring it down, and now I get this end a little bit wet, and then I can thread it through the eye of my needle. Okay. And then on my machine I also have a little hook here, you can see that here, and I need to slide my thread into that hook there. Okay. So now my top thread is all threaded through and ready to go. Now we're going to talk about the bobbin or the bottom thread. So inside here, I already have a bobbin that's full of blue thread. I'm going to show you how to fill this as if this was empty. So on my machine, you can see mine has a little H here. That signifies the part that needs to go up inside machine. So that means it also needs to be facing forward when I'm adding thread to it. So I'm coming over here to this little peg here. This is our bobbin filler. And I'm going to push this all the way on. And then I'm going to want to push this down. So that pushing it down basically switches it from my foot pedal moving this needle over here to now filling this bobbin and turning this. So I'm going to tie these together. Pretend you didn't see this part. Okay, I'm going to pretend like I'm bringing my thread from my machine So I'm bringing my thread from the bottom of my machine. It's still connected to my needle here, and then I'm bringing it up here and I'm winding it around a few times on my bobbin. And then with my other foot, which is on the floor, I'm going to press my foot onto this, and it's going to catch my thread now here. You can see how tight this is. That has to do with the tension where it's connected to in this machine. So I just push my presser foot until I think my bobbin is full enough. Then I'm going to switch it off of bobbin mode, pull it off of that little peg, and then I've got a little blade here that I can cut this off with. Okay, so now I've separated my bobbin from my top thread, and I'm going to put my bobbin back in the bobbin hole here. Okay, so I like to leave a little bit of a tail, and again my little letter is facing up, and I'm just pushing it right into there, and then I'm bringing my tail around. I have another hook right here to catch, and you can hear that click. I'm going to leave my tail hang out of my bobbin just like that. Then I'm going to put my little clear case cover right back on top. Alright, so we've got the top threaded and we've got our bobbin filled. Now we have to connect the two so that they can actually sew together in harmony. So we've got the tail of the top, right? This is connected to our needle. And then I'm coming over here to my hand wheel. So you're gonna have to figure out where you're gonna watch. Watch my hand or watch the needle. I would watch the needle. So my hand is going to do the same positioning, this rolling towards me. Okay, I'm gonna show you a little closer while I do that. So I'm rolling the hand wheel towards me, right, and hanging on to my top tail here. And now watch, look at that bobbin thread come in. That's exactly what we want. I always use my little scissors to kind of catch that bottom and bring it out. So there's my bobbin thread. It came up to meet the top thread from the bottom bobbin. So I like to pull that out a little bit, give it about 5 or 6 inches of tail, and then snip. We want to bring everything underneath the presser foot here. So that presser foot lever is what lets us go up and down with our machine, and that presses the fabric underneath the presser foot so that we can sew without the fabric going all over the place. So now we've got our 2 threads all ready to put 2 pieces of fabric in and sew. A few other things that you'll want to note about your machine: some of the buttons. I bet you're asking yourself, what about the other buttons? What do they do? So these 2 here are tension buttons. You might have 1 or 2, but either way, these buttons here I rarely touch or adjust. I keep them at the factory setting, which is about 4, and that's probably what you'll want to do too. And then over here, we've of course talked about this button. This is the bobbin button, and right now we're ready to sew and use our needle, not fill up a bobbin, right? And then down here, I've got 2 knobs, 2 adjusters. This bottom one is my stitch length, how long I want my stitch. And this one is how wide I want my stitch. So if I'm using a zigzag stitch, do I want it to be really narrow and tight, or do I want it to be really wide? So that's what this button does. Mine also moves to different stitches. So you might want to experiment on your machine with that. I also have a buttonhole option here, and then this is also my reverse button. So on most machines you'll have either a reverse button that you push down here or that you hold in, and that reverse button or backstitch button is what creates a knot at the beginning of your project. So you do a couple of stitches ahead, and then you'll do a back stitch, and that locks the stitches in place so that it can't unravel later on. So then when I'm ready to start sewing, I can close my cover and put all of the stuff on the inside alone, and then start sewing. So that's it. You did it. You threaded your sewing machine. I should be praising you for getting it out of the closet today. So congratulations, you got it out of the closet and you threaded it all in one day. Nice work. So next week we're going to put your machine to work, and we're actually going to sew 2 pieces of fabric together. So we're going to create a seam next week on the channel. So stay tuned for the next lesson on how to create a seam. Thanks so much for joining me today while we thread your sewing machine. As always, if you've got comments or thoughts, leave them down below so that I don't miss out on any questions while we're going through this series. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great week.